Greetings, exporters and business internationals. Our webinar on how to do business in Germany using online tools is going to start now. We're just waiting for the last people to continue to log on. And as we do that, we're just going to start by introducing ourselves and our topic today. So what we're going to be talking about is doing business in Germany. Online tools means websites, localized websites, social media marketing. We're really delighted to be here. Let's introduce ourselves starting off. So my name is, that's a better idea. Before we even start on introducing ourselves, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So this is part of a series called the Go Global webinar series. We have a lot of webinars that are recorded that you can listen in on if you have a particular interest of past webinars. And then we have quite an interesting selection of webinars going forward. This webinar will be 50 minutes long. It includes a live Q&A at the end, so we would really encourage you and would be delighted to answer questions that you have. So just put your question into your little chat box, and we'll get it and curate the questions and get back to the questions at the end. So really encourage you to put in your questions, any questions regarding Germany and online, anything that you've been puzzled about, put it into the chat box and we will get back to it. During the webinar, we'll also have 4 polls, and these are things that we would like, questions we're going to ask you, the audience, and we would really appreciate if you could just take your mouse and click on the answer that corresponds best for you, and that'll help us also design and tailor the webinar better for your responses and needs. We're also going to give you 3 handouts during the webinars, and we'll show you how to do that on the handout selection of your screen on the right-hand side. We'll show you when to get that. At the end of the webinar, there is a very, very brief survey. Please take a second to fill it out. As soon as we close the webinar, you'll see it pop up on your screen. It takes 1 minute to fill out, but we would really appreciate it if you could do that. Finally, this is recorded, and you will receive the slide deck and the recording in your mailbox on Friday. So you can sit back, enjoy the webinar, and just focus on how to do business in Germany using online tools. So now let me finally introduce ourselves. So my name is Susanna Hardy. I'm the Chief Content Officer for IBT Online. So I'm really responsible for all the content that we have, helping our clients and prospects maneuver into international markets through using online tools. So websites, social media marketing, posts, and international marketing. And I've been with IBT for a number of years now. My background really is in financial analysis, but I'm really delighted to be on the online side now and working with our clients and prospects about content. And Bella, on your left, is an online marketing manager. She is German and therefore looks after a lot of our German requirements for clients looking into getting into the German market and focusing on the German market. Bella has a master's degree in marketing and has joined us now for a while and sits actually in our London, in our UK office, but is an expert at the intricacies of German websites and German online marketing. So very, very briefly, quickly on who is IBT or what is IBT Online. IBT Online is a private company. We're a US company, although we do have an office in the UK and Germany as well and some other places, but we're a US company and we're really 100% focused on delivering online tools, that's websites and online marketing for small to mid-sized companies. So we're really focused on that space. We're focused on the international trade, we're focused on international markets, and helping small and medium-sized companies go international by using online tools. We've been doing that for quite a number of years now. We work with over 400, actually about 500 companies. We work with US state programs as well, and we are very proud and boastful that we have also been nominated for several innovative company awards in the last 2 years. So that's us and our website, ibt.onl. So now let's get straight on to things. Let's talk about what our agenda for the day and what we're going to be talking about. Belle and I decided to divide up the webinar into sort of 4 sections, sort of an introduction on doing business in Germany and some of the key aspects that we find important for exporters and people looking at the German market. Just summarizing our experience there. And then drilling down into the Germany Online and why we feel that exporters to Germany really benefit from German websites and how they could use them and the ways to use them and how Germans interact online. Then we're going to give some examples and conclusions about great websites in Germany. What makes for a great, successful website in Germany? How do Germans interact, business terms, B2B, B2C, and so on. And then finally, some case studies and best practices at the end to highlight some of the main conclusions. As I said, we would really like you to put in some questions. Please, feel free, drop them into that chat box that you can see on the right-hand side of your screen. It should be on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll come to them at the end. So let's start. Let's start with sort of the Powerhouse Germany. And I guess to put it in some sort of perspective, looking at our attendees, we have attendees from all over the world. We have some from India, from Saudi Arabia, from Europe, but we have a lot of you coming from the USA. So we thought it might be useful to do some comparisons. When we're looking at comparisons, we're going to mainly choose the USA. So we thought we'd just list some of the big macroeconomic numbers here just to put Germany in perspective in terms of size. I think what's really important to take away is just also how prosperous Germany is. It is, in terms of GDP per pop, it's really one of the top in the world. And in terms of GDP per, just straight line GDP, the 4.2 trillion, that's 4th largest in the world. It is also extremely business minded and business friendly. It's not an easy, no large sophisticated market is easy. Germany is not an easy market, but it is not a difficult or insurmountable market. It is a straightforward, the rules are clear and well defined and a well trodden path. Now, let's drill down into some numbers about sort of Germany's place in the world. Now, size matters for an exporter. You're going to be investing in markets. It's important to choose ones that actually deliver well. So size does matter, and Germany is large by any standard. It has Europe's largest population at 82 million people. That's equivalent to roughly a quarter of the size of the USA. Put it another way, it's equivalent to your 3 most populous states combined. So California plus Texas plus Florida combined equals Germany. So when you're thinking of sort of, how many trade reps do we have in the USA? How many do we need? Do we need a separate one for California? Well, think then Germany is larger than that single one in terms of population, at least. In terms of GDP, equally, Germany is also Europe's largest, but it's large by a really big amount. It's about $1 trillion more than the number 2. So France is the number 2 is either France or UK. So Germany is the 4th largest economy in the world, ranked by GDP. And by the way, all these numbers come from the World Bank. But if you put that in perspective, that's again equivalent to about 3 times the whole of the GDP of the Russian Federation. It's about 1.5 times the size of India. It's about 2.5 times the size of Canada. So again, a very large GDP by any stretch of the imagination. In terms of how it focuses as an exporter and importer, I think it's amazing. Germany is known as an export powerhouse. It's also an import powerhouse. It's the 3rd largest importer in the world, as well as the 3rd largest exporter. And people often forget that. And that's one of the reasons why it really has to be on your radar screen if you are looking for export markets. Germany's got to be there as one of the top destinations. And then we just thought we'd put a little map of Germany just to make sure we're all talking about the same thing here. And there's 2 things I want to point out about this map. The first is that Germany is divided up into Länder. These 16 Länder, these regional states, have a lot of autonomy, a lot of say, a lot of different character, and they're known for different things. the Rhine-Neckar agglomeration there is the single largest cluster of IT and high-tech companies in Europe, for example. Stuttgart in Baden-Württemberg is about a third of Germany's automobile industry. So, when you're looking at Germany and you say, well, I'm in, for example, I don't know, finance. Well, that got to be in Frankfurt. I'm in aerospace and aeronautics. Then I've got to be near Munich and Bavaria. So it's a very regional place as well. So that's the other point I want to make about this map is just how many neighbors and other countries Germany has. Poland, Czech Republic, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Austria, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and then of course Denmark. And then by sea it has, including the UK and other ones. So it has a lot of border countries. And this will come into play when you start looking at your export strategies as well. We talk about a manufacturing powerhouse, and I just put up a few of these iconic, logos from companies that are known throughout the world. Europe's largest IT company, SAP, obviously the car companies, Allianz Insurance, Lufthansa, Adidas. But so it's really a powerhouse not only in the manufacturing but also in retail, banking, and other things, sports manufacturing, and so on. So it is really large, and it's a powerhouse in all sense of the word. For cars, for example, 6 million cars made in Germany. That's 30% of all passenger cars, in the world. So 20% of all new registrations done in Germany. There are in total 41 automobile assembly and production plants in Germany. So this is really a sort of a major place. I put as a title here: your biggest supplier, competitor, or prospective buyer is probably German. And that's, I think, the main message we really wanted you to take away on this. Again, the role that Germany plays in an exporter strategy, in just the priorities that you as an exporter, as an international business have. Germany must be one of the top destination markets. Now, there's one more feature we wanted to highlight before we drill down into the online side, and that is the role of the Mittelstand. Mittelstand is the term given to those groups of companies in Germany who really are the engine of German manufacturing and German strength. They account for 50% of Germany's GDP, and they are typically family-owned private companies. They've been export-oriented since their very foundation, and they are very much niche. They excel at a particular thing, and their ambition is to become a global leader in that sphere. I'm sure you all have come across them. So that is the Mittelstand. And these is really it's not just the inside of the sandwich, it's the real bread and butter of the German economy and how German business works. It employs over 70% of the private sector. And they do have quite a few characteristics. They're very cautious. That's certainly one thing. They have a long-term commitment. It's not easy to get in with one of them, to become a supplier, to become a client, to become a partner with one of them. But once you do, they tend to be extremely loyal. And because of that long-term commitment and that caution, the importance of dialogue can't be understated. And also, obviously, because they are looking at these sort of global niche, places, they're obviously quality-driven. So those are sort of the main things. And as I said, this is very much a sort of top-down, top-level view of Germany and German business. This is really a webinar about doing online and using tools for that. So I just wanted to sketch that out before we started. Now, before we drill down into that, I'm going to launch the first poll. So here you go. The first poll, so please grab your mouse and click on the thing that most corresponds with you. Are you currently doing business in Germany? And are you doing it via in-market partners? Are you online? Do you have distributors? Do you only do it online? Or are you still just thinking about it? And do you have online plus? Okay, well, I'd say about most of you, 80% of you have now voted, so I'm going to give you some quick feedback on that. The majority of you are already doing business in Germany and with distributors. There are very few of you who are doing it with distributors and online. The majority have distributors or in-market partners. And there's some of you, though, who have, there's a good sort of, I'd say 20% who have online only. Those are fantastic. That's great. Thank you very, very much indeed. We appreciate that. And now let's move forward. Let's move forward to our next section here, which is Germany Online, why we believe it's important for exporters to have a German website. What is it about German websites that makes it important for you? So here we go. Now it's worth stopping a moment to think just how pervasive the internet has become. So out of a total world population in 2018 of about 7.5 billion people, over 5 billion people were on the internet in 2018. So it's really is very pervasive. It's everywhere. It's global. So if you ever think your life as a business manager is nonstop on your smartphone, your emails, your social media, your apps, your browsing, well, guess what? Everyone else is as well. Germany is absolutely no exception. In fact, it's one of the top on that sphere, with 96% of the German population is on the internet. There were 4 million new internet users in 2018 alone. Now, the makers of these slides, these data stats, is a company called Hootsuite, and We Are Social, the organization that compile these global stats every year. We're very grateful that they do. They count a person on the internet, only those who actually use the internet regularly. People who have a unique email address, for example. So when we say 96% of the population is really saying something about internet penetration rates in Germany. It's one of the highest in the world. Hand in hand with that is the 131% penetration of what they call mobile subscriptions. That's basically smartphones. So there's a lot of people in Germany who have several telephones. And are using them as well for internet access. There are 2 little facts to note that I want to highlight here. The first is that despite the fact that 96% of people in Germany going online all the time, less than half of them are on social media. This is low by international standards. You see that 38 million people here, that's 46%. That's low by international standards, and we can drill down into that later, and Bella will be talking about it. But rest assured on one thing, your business links, those clients, your prospects, your suppliers, they're all on social media. They are all on the internet too. So the only other feature we'd highlight at this point, which goes hand in hand with that, is namely the relatively low amount of time spent on the internet, just 4 hours. And here we'll show you a bit more on that. If we look at the time spent on the internet, 4 hours and a half, 4 hours and 37 minutes. This is low. The EU average is over 6 hours, and for the USA is about 6.5 hours. That's per day. The average person in the United States spends 6.5 hours per day on the internet. In Germany, it's 4.5. So that's low. And correspondingly, the social media average is also low in Germany at 1 hour. Nevertheless, it's really, we can assure you that your business side is definitely on it. Now, I want to apologize for these slides, these pie charts and stats. It's something that we spend a lot of time analyzing and working out for strategies for our clients, but we wanted to sort of share some of this with you. And I remind you, you do get a handout of all this later. But so while we're looking at all these, what about the Germans? Is it worth having a German website? And given what I just said about the relatively low levels of internet time spent and social media, is it worthwhile having German websites and social media marketing to help your exports? And the answer from our experience is a very clear yes. First, as we saw, they're all online, 96% of them. And what we found is that while the average time spent on social media is only an hour, the Germans take it very seriously. They spend less time tweeting and posting selfies, more time reading reviews, looking carefully at companies. So rest assured, your business links, your clients are all there. Again, we'll go through this more, but right now let's complete our tour of Germany online. So again, way too much for one slide, I know, but I wanted to have just one slide to touch about e-commerce. I've tried to fit everything I know about it, well, not everything, but everything on Germany comes on one slide. The good news is that there's the handout for you here. And if you go to your toolbox there on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see handouts. And clicking on the handout is an infographic. And you can then just click on that and drag that, download it, and then you have infographic. It's called Germany's online environment as an infographic, and that'll give you more detail on that. Now on e-commerce, there's a couple of things I wanted to highlight for you here. I guess really the first is that just the size again. I guess it's a combination of strong economy with pro-technology culture means that Germany has one of the highest, fastest growing EU e-commerce rates in Europe. Today, it is the second in the EU after the UK, but it's still growing, whereas the UK is nearing saturation, really. It should outpace the UK in terms of size in the next 22 months. German e-commerce is one of the largest in the world, as you can see there, at 73 billion. And if you combine it with UK, Germany, and France, it's equivalent to 70% of all European e-commerce. For Germany, the top 10 retail sites are all German. Otto, Zalando, MediaMarkt, and of course, Amazon.de, the German version of Amazon. Cross-border e-commerce is very high. Germany is the third most active country worldwide, both in import and export e-commerce. That's after the UK and the US as number 1 and number 2 in the world. And German online shoppers buy cross-border most frequently from the UK, the US, or China. And it's a growing phenomenon. It's got good double-digit growth in terms of cross-border. So there is a lot, growing acceptance as well for cross-border e-commerce sales. Just to mention also in terms of sort of PayPal and so on, PayPal is one of the most popular online methods in Germany. Germans don't particularly like credit cards, and many of them don't even have them. There are also a lot of popular online payment providers, Click and Buy, GiroPay, and these are all very well recognized. So if you are looking into the e-commerce side, it is quite a very specific market. And again, let us know, and we can give you more, lots more information and handouts about e-commerce in particular in Germany. I would say these numbers correspond to B2C e-commerce. B2B is harder to find reliable stats about, but is reckoned to be 2 to 3 times the size of the retail e-commerce. Now I'm going to hand over to Bella for a minute to talk about social media. Bella, let's hear about social media in Germany.
Sure, thank you, Susanna. So as Susanna mentioned earlier today, nearly everyone is online in Germany, so nearly 96%, but only half of them use social media. So generally, we can say that the social media usage in Germany is lower than most other European countries. And Germany also is really cautious to adopt new social media platforms, but it is growing consistently, and it should be part of any exporter strategy. So the first platform to mention is Facebook. So Facebook is still the #1 social media platform by a long reach. 33% of all Germans use Facebook at least once per week, most of them even daily. So when we are looking at strategies for our clients in Germany, we need to think about using Facebook. Then we have some big differences when you want to reach Germans compared to the US and the UK audiences. For example, German businesses often use Google+. This is much more popular than in the US, for example. But also Twitter, on the other hand, is not such a strong platform in Germany. Maybe because the number of characters compared to the length of the German words, but I think also because Germans don't consider it too serious. Germans like quite a lot of content and not something which is rather short or snappy, but something with more substance, which is a bit longer than the restriction of words in Twitter. Then we have another platform in Germany, which is called Xing. It is like a little like LinkedIn, but it's more specific. So it's a great place to find employees in Germany, but also distributors and to be in touch with the industry-specific forums. So as you can see on this image, Xing is just ahead of LinkedIn in terms of usage, so it's more used than LinkedIn in Germany. And then we have also some characteristics for you. The ones we have here are cautious, discreet, compliance aware, and all of these features are similar to the features you would find on how to use German websites. So we will expand this a bit later, but it's really important just to underline that Germans have a different view of social media than most of our US or UK audiences. They are more cautious and take the content seriously. So your social media strategy has to reflect that. Then you can see this as well in how the Germans respond to social media. So the Germans will actually read your content, there you can be sure about, but not just give it a like, but they also will watch your content or videos or the data you provide. And Germans like to leave reviews, so you should be ready to respond them if they leave one. Yeah, this brings us to the next slide. We want to take another look at Facebook specifically because Facebook is really important for the German market. And of course, the Facebook in Germany is German. And just to say, Facebook exists in over 1,000 languages. And of course, a German client is used to being able to see anything they want on Facebook in German. So as mentioned before, Facebook is the biggest social media platform in Germany and of course a good starting point to get into the German social media world. So therefore I summarized you some facts and best practices for the Facebook in Germany. So Germans hesitate to like posts without reading the content before. So first of all, they want to know what is this page or this post about, and then they decide if they like it or not. So if you post something on Facebook and don't get a lot of likes or comments, don't be too disappointed, because it doesn't mean that the people are not being aware of your post or not reading it. It just means that if they like it, people actually read your content and actually liked your content. So it's actually a good thing if they give you a like. And this also means that we often set goals about engagement rather than the absolute numbers of likes if we do a social media strategy for Germany. Another point is that if you try to create content, it should be useful and relevant for the market. So, for instance, addressing problems, give helpful guidelines or solutions to a problem is a great way of creating awareness for your business and engaging with your German market on social media. And the last point, as mentioned before, Germans like to leave reviews and state their opinion, especially if they are unhappy with your service. So take this constructive criticism, and it can definitely help you your business to develop. So just get in touch with the people and try to solve potential issues for the future.
Thanks, Bella. A great overview of social media in Germany and social media strategies that work in Germany. We are going to talk now about sort of great websites for Germany. What works in Germany, what works well, what do Germans like to see on their websites, and so on. Before I do that, I think it's worthwhile just, stepping back a little bit, stepping up a little bit, and looking and thinking about how the internet works at its basics, how, what it means to have German websites, how those are found, and so on. So let's just take 2 seconds to do that. And I guess I just wanted to show this and sort of say, the internet today has really changed the way business has to look at its customers. The online world means essentially that your client, your customer, becomes central to the business. The online world is client focused, and therefore you need to be too. It forces you to take that extra step. And really, if you're into marketing or if you're into sales, then one of the main objectives you have is to try and influence and be part of all of those arrows you see on the right-hand side of their screen, between customer to customer, customer to company, customer to competitor, that they're thinking of you and thinking of you in a positive way. So that's really your goal in terms of marketing and therefore also sales. So there's this very much a client-focused, customer-centric view, and you'll see that as well about how we do websites. Now, just the simplest, easiest way I have to talk about websites and the localization of websites, which means making them client-focused and client-centric, is to go back and talk about search engines. Search engines are localized. In other words, they are client or searcher-centric. So Google, for example, if you're sitting in the States, you go to google.com. If you're sitting in Germany, you go to google.de. This is a different Google. You should think of Google not as like one big behemoth throughout the world. And any search engine, same for Baidu in China, whatever. No, they are the search engine takes the point of view of the searcher. So if Bella's sitting in Germany, she would go on to google.de, she would type in her search words in German, and Google would reply and find the things that are most relevant to her sitting where she is sitting geographically, and searching for what she's searching geographically, and with the keywords she uses. So if you're sitting in the States and you just put a German page onto your US website, Google will not treat that as a very relevant website for someone sitting in Germany. You're basically invisible for someone sitting in Germany. So I sort of want to put that out there. That that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about localized websites. Google, by the way, has over 90% market share in Germany, like most of Europe. It has about 70% market share in the States. So getting to make sure that your website works in Germany means making sure that Google likes you. And Google likes you if you're localized. So here's what we mean by localized. And I've put on one slide the 10 characteristics or the criteria that we use when we talk about a localized website. And you can see from this that fully adapted to local language is one criteria out of all of the 10. There's a lot more things that go into making a website pleasing to the local Google. It has to have the right content management system. It's got to have the right regulatory requirements. We'll get down to that later. It has to be mobile enabled, multilingual. Register your domain name. Register your .de domain name. That's one of the key things to start with. So those are the 10 criteria. When we talk about localized websites, that's what we mean. Okay, so when we're talking about a German website as opposed to a US website, those are the attributes that we will be looking at to address. This leads me on to my second poll before we start looking at the German websites in particular, which is, do you have localized websites today? Do you have localized websites for your German business? Are you already using websites that are localized for Germany? So, or do you do that, or do you let your distributors do it? Do you have them yourself? And so, how do you use them? And again, about 2/3 of you have voted, and I can give you some feedback on it. There's not many of you who have localized websites. We're talking a small handful, sort of, under 10% of you have localized websites, fully localized. But the big bulk of you have things that are linked somehow to your in-market partners or distributors. So I'm very happy to see that. And I'm happy to see also that you're really thinking about German websites and localized websites. That's terrific. Thank you for voting on that poll. Now let's look a little bit more about German websites. The first thing I wanted to really mention was just, again, comes down, I guess, to size. We talked about 82 million people in Germany. When we do websites in German and our localized websites, we typically find that we can have a bigger reach than Germany itself. And this is really because there's a lot of those neighboring countries and that cross-border, those porous borders for many of them, where German is a much spoken language, and Google also recognizes this. So your website in Germany obviously touches Austria and German-speaking Switzerland and Liechtenstein and Luxembourg, and there's even a little pocket of Belgium that speaks German. But it can also reach into neighboring parts of, say, Poland and the Czech Republic, the Netherlands, even Denmark, where people along the border areas do speak a lot of German and can very well, be searching for things. Industries could be searching for things in German because they're used to doing. The Polish-German border is one of the most porous borders in the world. With Schengen, there isn't really a border at all, but there's a vast number of people who work on one side and live on the other. And so your German website, in fact, actually does expand quite a bit further. So I just want to flag that up. When we talk about 82 million inhabitants, we find a German website reaches about 100 million people. So I'm going to pass back to Bella now and just talk about great German websites and what we mean by that. Bella.
Thank you, Susanna. The first thing you need to be aware when it comes to websites in Germany is the best German websites are in German. So even though 70% of the Germans speak English, Germans prefer to read in their own language. So that makes German the third most common language on the internet, and Germans can find almost everything they need in their mother tongue. So they don't have the incentive to search in English. And if there's the case they want to find something in English, it's just because of they are looking for specific information or because they are very persistent in searching for a specific niche product. So these are just exceptions. Most Germans will search in German. So if you have a US or UK website, your website will not pop up in the search results at all, and you just remain invisible to them. The next point is long and compound words. So with a German website, you should be prepared for long and compound words. If you translate a text from English into German, your end text will be longer. So one reason for that is the complex grammar and the greater use of pronouns, but also the compound words. So words like, as you can see on the slide, Massenkommunikationsdienstleistungsunternehmen, which means companies providing mass communication services, are no rarity in the German languages. So one thing you need to be prepared for is that your website layout may be adjusted so that all the words fit inside, even if you use your mobile phone and without getting too small. The next point is that in the German language, specific English words exist, which might not always be used the same way as in English. Just to give you an example, the word handy is a typical German word, but while in the English language you would describe it with something practical or useful, in Germany it's a noun meaning a mobile phone. And another point is addressing a person. So German has a formal language, and we have two versions of addressing a person, the informal du and the formal sie. So these are our two versions of you, and in Germany, more or less only younger people or people you really know well would be addressed in the informal you. Business contacts are usually addressed with a formal version. So if you are not sure how to address your prospects, you should rather choose the formal you to be on the safe side and don't offend anyone. And besides that, it is also normal to address people by their surnames rather than the first name, as it's common in the UK or in the US. Yes, this brings us to another point to make a great German website, so the keywords. You have to be very careful to find the right keywords for German websites. This is essential for the search engine optimization, as mentioned before, but it's also especially important for the German language. So in Germany, we love to invent new words. This means often that there is a number of ways how to translate a product name, because Germans love creating new words by combining existing ones. So your translator might suggest a term that describes your product well, but it does not mean that the Germans are actually looking for this word. So that's why the keyword research is so important when building a German website. And creating new words means that your keywords can change a lot. So it's really important to renew your keywords on a regular basis. And also something you should note is that Germans love abbreviations. So this is maybe the flip side of those long compound words. So often the best keywords is actually the abbreviated version rather than the long version of the word, because it's just easier to type in a short version of a long word. And then something you have to keep in mind are the differences between the German-speaking countries. So just as an example, as you can see the charts, I have a little example for different keywords between the countries, Germany and Austria. So in Germany, the word Eistüte would be used for an ice cream cone. And as you can see, 94% would use the word Eistüte in Germany. But Austria has their own German dialect, so words can vary. Austrians would understand the word Eistüte, and even 1/3 would even use it, but they also have another word which is called Stanitzel, and more than 64% would prefer the word Stanitzel for an ice cream cone than Eistüte. So even if these countries are sharing the same language, the keywords can be really different because of the dialects and preferences in wording in these countries. So, and this brings us to the last point for great German websites, the content. So, what is important is to use a strong and relevant content on your website. So don't be afraid to add text and explanations. Your German prospects will definitely check it all out. And also you can provide additional content for your German website. Germans like specifications or additional information or even application examples, but you shouldn't flood the website with too much content on a single page. So one good practice would be to display the most relevant content on the website and then provide additional information through downloadable documents like PDF files. Yeah, and besides that, in the German market, the correct grammar, spelling, and vocabulary are an absolute must for a good impression. So in Germany, it's like your website represents your brand and your business, and a low quality or poorly translated content gives the impression of a low quality product, and you don't want that in the market. And our last point is the localization. So the localization is an important part of the content creation, and it's much more than a simple translation. So the localization starts with currencies and measurement units and goes up to content, phrases, images, or even regulations. So the point of localization is to give the local prospects and clients the impression of a local German website and not just a translation of the basic content.
Bella, thank you so much. We're going to launch a quick new poll, basically on social media. Do you use social media and online marketing in your German work? Do you use them for your export, to drive your exports? Does that something that your German distributors in markets help you with? Do you use it extensively in Germany and most of your export markets? But only in a limited way, or are you thinking about it, or do you not use it at all? Well, about 2/3 of you have voted. Actually, there's a few more just coming in now. Yeah, about 2/3 of you have voted, so I think I can give you some. It's much more split, this one, actually. A lot of you are thinking about it. You know, many of you are just using it in a very limited way. Many of you are still thinking about it. So that's interesting. More of you have websites. Not all of you are yet there with the social media. Thank you very, very much for that, and we're going to continue. I'm going to say a very, very brief word, just very quickly, on GDPR and Impressum. These are the two major compliance must-haves for a German website. The Germans are, you know, Europe leads the way in terms of data protection and regulation, and the leader in Germany, the leader in Europe is definitely Germany. So this is an absolute must-have for anyone looking at a German online experience, is to make sure you are absolutely compliant with all regulations and protection. And the two biggest ones that you need to know about are Impressum and GDPR. So Impressum really is authorship. It defines who owns the content. And that's been around for quite a long time. It's very prevalent in the book publishing world, and Germans extended it to the online world as well. And it's really about who owns the website and who owns the content of the website. GDPR came in May, in effect in May 2018, and is now really getting to be prevalent everywhere. I think that we have done a lot of work on GDPR. I'm going to go through this very quickly indeed. Again, in your handouts, you'll find a little data, a little blog about GDPR. If you have specific interest in GDPR and want help with it, let us know. We can walk you through it easily. Just the main thing that we find again and again, does GDPR apply to UK, US companies? The answer is yes. If you're doing anything with data of anyone, even like your distributor in Germany is a personal data. That's an EU data subject. Therefore, GDPR applies to you. And that's by any company inside or outside the EU. Doesn't matter if you're a US company. Yes, it applies to you. So the short answer of this is, does GDPR apply to US companies? Yes. The transfer of data outside the US is absolutely prohibited under GDPR, except if you're GDPR compliant. This will have major impacts and major repercussions for your export strategy using online tools. And again, if you want more details on that, drop us a line. We can help you with quite a lot of resources. There's a couple of major steps, and again, you can look through this at leisure when we send you the slide deck and recording later. But breaking it, we've tried to break down the whole GDPR process into bite-sized steps that allow it to be a little bit less complex, a little bit less daunting. And in fact, once you start breaking it down in those levels, it starts to be a lot easier to deal with. And finally, I just wanted to highlight, we do have even a service and a separate service offering on GDPR compliant websites for Europe. And if you go to our website, you'll find details of how to get a GDPR compliant website for Europe within it can be a small website, but it is fully compliant. So again, drop us a line if you want to learn more on GDPR, but it is absolutely essential for anyone looking at Germany. This brings us now to case studies and best practices. Again, what I would encourage you to do is to go onto our website. You'll find a whole range of testimonials and case studies built out on the blog section, but also on the website, videos from clients who tell their story. And just by going through, I think you can find companies, we hope that you can find companies that resonate with you, that you say, hey, this is like us, this is the choices they made, that might be an interesting path as well. So if you go onto our website and find and see, okay, US client success stories, for example, you'll find a whole bunch of testimonials, and click on them and find the company that most resembles you and see what choices they made and see if they resonate and they fit some of your challenges. Now I want to drill down in two in particular, and Bella, maybe you could go through the Rollright case study quickly.
Yeah, sure. Rollright is a great example of online localization. So the company is privately held, a US company, and it is a manufacturer who works in a variety of different markets. So they typically have an in-market partner who looks after the logistics of the product and the after sales, and generally act as contact person for that market. So Rollright is responsible for their marketing. So the company got in touch with us in 2015 to start looking to see how to increase their sales across Europe. And when we started working with Rollright in 2015, the focus was on brand awareness as goal. And the company needed to build up its prospect base. And as the product was innovative, it needed brand awareness as well as market education. So we started building an international online presence for Germany, the UK, and France, followed by our online marketing program. And today, Rollright has extended their online performance to 8 international markets, which we actively market through the online channels, so relying on Facebook and Google Ads. And Rollright's main goal was creating brand awareness in the international markets. But after getting the brand recognized in the target countries, the goals were selling the products via the distributor or directly to the client. So we adapted the online presence and strategy accordingly. And for the German market, this meant having a localized website. Obviously, it meant translating the content, but also adjusting it, integrating the right German keywords, and also what was especially important for Rollright was adjusting the images, because trucks in the US and in Germany look very different. So having a localized German website with a typically American truck would not work for Germany. So you can see on the left side that there's a German typical truck, and it's very different to the US one.
Terrific. Thank you, Bella. I wanted also to highlight one of the case studies, which is a company, again, this is a US company. It's a small mid-cap company, privately owned. They work via distributors, they work via in-market partners. And one of their challenges is that they have a lot of different verticals. They sell to retail, to food processing, to industry, to schools, art supplies. They sell to a lot of different places. So it was very important to them to somehow have one place where they kept all the resources for their distributors. And we started working with them a couple of years ago, and started out, in fact, with their main European markets, the UK and Germany. And as I said, it was important that each one of their various partners and distributors could find the resources easily in one place. So that was one objective of the websites. And so that the German distributor could find German brochures, whatever, handouts on the German website. The next objective was that the website helped them find new distributors. And so we actively put on pages which sought out and went to Xing and LinkedIn and other platforms to try and find new distributors for them. And this was a very innovative way for them to do it, but has proved to be very successful. And the third aspect really is, because there's little brand awareness in the field that they're in, it was very important to remain front of mind in the long term for their end clients and prospects, so that their websites could help them have a continuous slow burn awareness strategy behind the scenes, so that when it came to reordering or ordering for the first time, the prospect or the client would think of them first. And that's been a really great success for them, and they've since expanded from the UK and Germany side. They've expanded now elsewhere in Europe, but also China and Australia and other markets as well. And their international sales have now really picked up and are growing at more than twice the rate of their domestic sales, having come from a very static position. So they're very pleased with that rollout And I think the key here is, again, defining the right strategy for the markets and the right goals for the markets. I wanted to end with a quick little message for you here, just really about trade fairs, because Germany is the single largest worldwide location for hosting international trade fairs. There's around 150 international trade fairs and exhibits in Germany every year. You know, and you know, I've put Hannover Messe there, but it could be Frankfurt Messe and all the other ones, Dusseldorf and so on. There's just so many that attract buyers and sellers from so many countries, and they're fantastic opportunities for exporters, obviously. But we have found that using a localized website and using marketing really can optimize the trade fairs, and we have quite a lot of experience on that, and using the localized websites in Germany to make sure that the investment you make on trade fairs is really comes through very well, and allows you to make sure that you're leading that investment well in Germany. I'm going to leave it at that, really, because to leave some time for questions. I do see that we have a lot of questions, in fact. But I wouldn't recommend that you go to our website and check out some of the client testimonials. So questions right away, because I'm looking at the clock as well. Questions. Bella, a question for you, if that's okay. So Bella, how should we start social media marketing in Germany? What would be the first steps for social media marketing in Germany? Bella.
I would say it depends on the business sector and the audience of the company. So, for example, if you are B2B or B2C, but the most important thing to start with is setting your goals, because setting your goals will make you you think about your target audience as well as your most important achievements you need for your business. So your goals basically define your strategy. So if you start doing business in Germany, maybe it will be brand awareness for the first goal. And then the social media strategy has to be about brand or thought leadership. And if you have a distributor and already some business in Germany, then maybe the social media goal would be to increase awareness and all about clicks and even conversions. And Facebook is probably the channel you want to start with, and because it's the largest. And if you are selling fast-moving consumer goods, then you could also consider other channels like Instagram. And yeah, but it all depends on your goals, I would say.
Thank you very much, Bella. I'm going to take the next question, which is basically from a company saying, hello, we have a German distributor. What role should the German distributor play for our website and our German social media? That's a great question, because we get that question quite a lot, get it regularly. And I would say that think of it as a positive. It's a tool. A website is a tool that you're giving your distributor. A website allows your distributor to really showcase your products to their local market, to their in the best way possible, in the way that is most appealing to their local audience, and that's certainly the case in Germany. Now, the one thing we do say is that your distributor shouldn't be in charge of your online, because certainly you shouldn't allow him to buy your domain name. Your domain name, think of it as real estate. Think of it as your online real estate. And I think that it's very important that you, the company, own that. So if one of the first things you want to do in looking at localized websites is to actually go and buy your German.de, or at least your .eu for Europe, and don't allow your distributor to own that part. But after that, once you own that, your distributor can play a very active role. He can submit material for the marketing, or he can give you a great calendar of events and things, and say, okay, social media, we need to do it for that trade show or this trade show. So therefore, engage your distributor in the process, but make sure that he's not the one leading it. I'm going to actually call it quits now. I see that we've got a lot of other questions, but we are slightly running out of time. I would love it if you could please fill out our survey. I want to thank Bella for her help in putting this together with me, and I hope that it's been of use to you, and we look forward to further questions. We will answer your questions directly via email. I see a lot of you put questions in, and thank you, and we hope to see you at our next webinar or exporting in Germany. And happy exporting to you all. Please fill out our survey. Thank you. Bye-bye.